I am an eye forged of brass and polished glass, made to command the horizon, to own the distance. They believed my purpose was to find treasure, to chart the unknown shores. But the truest discovery I ever made was not of land or gold. It was of the darkness that hides within a human heart. I am the eye of the abyss, and I will show you how one man's ambition drowned an empire in salt and blood. Before the sea, there was fire. Before the salt, the sweat of a master craftsman. I was not born, but forged. My brass body was shaped by the rhythmic beat of a hammer that I felt as a pulse. My form polished by a cloth I knew as a caress. I was blind metal, a hollow promise. The master etched serpents into my skin. Their coils a prophecy of the sea I would soon know. He worked for weeks, his eye a hair's breadth from my own, seeking a perfection I could not yet comprehend. Then came the glass, ground from sand, clarified in flame. It was cold and perfect. As he fitted the final lens into my frame, the world rushed in. Light became a shape. Distance became a concept. For the first time, I could see. I was no longer a promise. I was purpose. I waited in the velvet darkness of a case, my sight filled with nothing. Then, a cacophony of sounds. The cry of gulls, the snap of sails, the shouts of merchants. I was brought into the blinding light of a port market. Many hands held me. Many eyes peered through me, but they were empty, casual. And then, his name was Alistair Thorne. They would come to call him Eagle Eye. His grip was not gentle like the craftsman's. It was firm, possessive. His eye, when it peered through my lens, was sharp, hungry. It did not seek the perfection of my form. It sought the dominion of the horizon. In that single moment, my purpose was honed. I was not made to be admired. I was made to be an extension of this man's will. I was to become the captain's eye. The ship was named the Serpent's Coil, a fitting vessel for a man who wished to wrap his ambition around the world. And I was its tooth. From the quarterdeck, I tasted the sea's spray for the first time. I learned the groan of the rigging, the rhythm of the waves, the vast, silent language of the stars. Alistair and I became one instrument of observation. My brass grew cold in the night watch, hot under the midday sun. My lens cut through fog and distance, turning smudges on the horizon into coastlines, distant sails into friend or foe. We hunted pirates, charted unnamed islands, and built a legend in every port. The crew respected him, trusted the certainty I provided. In those early years, the world was a map waiting to be written, and my sight was the ink. This was my purpose. This was my glory. To see, to know, to guide, before the abyss looked back through me. Legends, I learned, are heavy things. They attract glory, but they also attract envy. His name was Silas, the quartermaster, a man whose smile never reached his eyes, whose gaze lingered on me longer than it should. While Alistair used me to read the wind and the waves, Silas saw only the gleam of my brass, the value of my craftsmanship. The whispers started in the lower decks, quiet as the scurrying of rats in the bilge. They spoke of Alistair's luck, his uncanny ability to find wealth where others found only empty seas. They didn't see the hours he spent studying charts, the years of knowledge behind his decisions. They saw only the results, and in their greed, they began to believe the magic was not in the man, but in the instrument he held. They began to believe the magic was in me. The change in Alistair was slow, insidious. He began to trust me more than his own crew. He would spend entire nights on the deck, my cold lens pressed to his eye, searching for something he never named. It was on one of these nights that we found it, a floating chest from a shipwreck, bearing the crest of a legendary Spanish galleon inside, amongst waterlogged silks, was a chart. It was not paper, but stitched hide. Its ink a strange, dark red. It depicted an island that existed on no official map, and in its center, a symbol, a skull with a black pearl in its eye. The crew saw a treasure map. Alistair saw destiny. I, through my perfect, unfeeling glass, saw only a cartography of madness. The lines did not lead to a place. They led to a reckoning. The cursed chart became a fever, spreading silently through the ship's timbers. The camaraderie of the crew curdled into suspicion. Laughter was replaced by silence, shanties by the sharp sound of a whetstone on steel. They no longer looked at Alistair with respect, but with a predatory hunger. They were not sailors anymore. They were wolves tasting blood on the wind. Silas fed this hunger. I would watch him from my perch on the quarterdeck, a silent, brass sentinel. I saw the poison he dripped into willing ears, the promises of gold he offered in the shadows. He used their greed like a master uses a sextant, navigating a course directly towards mutiny. Alistair, lost in his obsession, saw none of it. He looked only through me, at a future I knew would never come. Then we saw it, a smudge of black on the horizon that I sharpened into a reality of jagged rock and dead trees. Land! Alistair roared, his voice filled with a triumph that was horribly misplaced. He raised me to his eye one last time, a grin spreading across his face. The island did not look like a paradise. It was a fang of volcanic rock rising from a churning sea, a place the sun seemed to fear. As Alistair savored his discovery, I saw what he could not. I saw the world beyond my focused circle. I saw Silas behind him, drawing a dagger from his boot, its edge catching the grim light. I saw the mutineers quietly taking their positions. I was showing my master his dream. While witnessing the preparation for his nightmare, the sky broke open, and the sea rose in fury. It was the perfect chaos, the perfect cover for the storm that had been brewing in the hearts of men. The first wave crashed over the deck, and with it, the first mutineers struck. Alistair fought with the strength of a cornered lion, his sword a blur in the lightning's flash. But he was one man against a tide of hatred. I watched the battle from my mount, a silent observer to the chaos. Steel rang, men screamed, and the rain washed the blood from the deck as soon as it was spilled. Silas, disarmed and desperate, was forced back against the helm. His eyes, wild with rage, scanned for a weapon, and then he saw me. A hand I did not know seized me, ripped me from the safety of my bracket. It was Silas, and for the first time, I was not pointed at the horizon, but at the heart of the ship, at my master. Brass is not meant to feel the shock of bone. The world turned upside down in a shower of sparks and a sound I will never forget. I felt the impact as a crack in my own soul. The serpent engravings on my side bit into the hand of my master's betrayal, and in my lens. For one eternal, silent second, I saw his eye. It held no anger, no fear, only a sudden, terrible clarity. The ultimate discovery. He was not looking at Silas. He was looking through me, at the reflection of his own ambition and the ruin it had wrought. He saw the end of his voyage. Then the sea took him. He was gone, leaving only the cold rain and his final, haunting gaze, forever imprinted upon my glass. I was no longer an instrument. I was a tomb. The storm passed, leaving behind a sky the color of a fresh bruise. Silas was captain now. He stood where Alistair had stood. He held what Alistair had held. He held me, but his grip was tainted with the sweat of fear. He had won the ship, but he had inherited its ghost. He tried to use me, to raise me to his eye, and chart a course from this accursed place. But I would not let him. I was no longer a window to the world. I was a mirror to his soul. Every time he looked, he did not see the horizon. He saw a flash of a horrified eye, a reflection of a dying man. I showed him his sin, magnified. He could not command the sea with an instrument that only showed him the abyss he had created. We reached the island. It was a place of oppressive silence, its black sand swallowing the sound of our boots, its twisted trees like skeletal fingers pointing at the gray sky. In a lightless cave, we found the treasure. Not a sparkling hoard, but a cold, dead weight of gold and jewels that seemed to absorb the lantern light. The joy of discovery never came. The men hauled the chests back to the ship with the grim determination of pallbearers. I hung from Silas's belt, a dead weight like the gold he had murdered for, and through my lens, I saw them, fleeting shadows in the corners of the cave, ghostly figures standing amongst the trees. The island knew what they had done. It was a tomb, and it recognized its own. The treasure did not make them rich. It made them poor in spirit. On the voyage back, a new madness took root. The whispers I heard on the island were now spoken by the men themselves. They accused each other of hiding coins, of plotting new betrayals. Fights broke out over a single doubloon. Desperate, Silas tried to assert his command, to use me to navigate a path away from the insanity. He raised me to his eye, screaming at the horizon to show itself. But he saw only Alistair's final gaze, judging him. In a fit of rage, he shrieked and smashed me against the mainmast. The ancient wood groaned, my brass body dented, a new scar to mark a new sin. But my glass, the glass that held the captain's soul, did not break. The ship was no longer a vessel. It was a floating asylum. The last few sailors, their minds fractured by the island's whispers and the gold's cold touch, finally turned on their captain. There was no strategy, no grand mutiny. It was a chaotic, cannibalistic frenzy. They cornered Silas against the broken helm, their faces illuminated by a sickly full moon. From the deck where I lay discarded, I watched. My dented body was a testament to their madness. I saw the final, desperate fight not as a battle for control, but as a final, convulsive twitch before death. These were not men fighting for treasure. They were ghosts fighting over the dust in their own tomb. The serpent had finally turned to eat its own tail. In their frenzy, a lantern was knocked over. The flame, small and insignificant at first, tasted the rum-soaked wood of the deck and roared to life. It was a hungry, vengeful fire, spreading with unnatural speed, climbing the rigging like a burning vine. The fight stopped. The men, their faces now lit by the orange glow of their own funeral pyre, stared in mute horror. I felt the heat. I, who was born in a forge's fire, would now be baptized in a fire of annihilation. The reflection of the flames danced in my lens, a brilliant, terrible orange that momentarily burned away the ghostly image of Alistair's eye. For a moment, I was cleansed. I was nothing but a witness to the end. The fire screamed. The ocean whispered, inviting the ship to its cold embrace. The vessel groaned one last time, a death rattle of splintering wood and hissing steam. And then the sea rose to claim it. I was swept from the deck in the final lurch, plunging from the world of air and fire into the crushing, silent world of water above me. The fire was a fading, distorted star. The screams were replaced by a profound, eternal hush. I tumbled downwards, end over end, through a darkness that fire could not touch. The abyss had come for its treasure. It had claimed the gold, the ship, the men, and now it had claimed me. I was home. Time, in the deep, is not measured by the sun or the moon. It is a slow, patient pressure. It is the gentle drift of silt, the silent growth of coral on the bones of a forgotten ship. I slept a sleep of brass and glass, a cold dream in a world without light. Sea creatures with eyes of pale fire drifted past me. The pressure of the abyss kept my single, frozen memory intact. The fire, the betrayal, the final, horrified gaze of my master, all were perfectly preserved in the cold, black amber of the deep. I was a secret the ocean kept, a piece of a forgotten tragedy. For centuries, the only thing that looked through my lens was the profound, unending darkness. The silence was broken, not by the crack of thunder, but by the sterile whine of machinery. A light, brighter and colder than any sun, tore through my darkness. It was a new kind of eye, one of metal and wires, and it had found me. A mechanical hand, impossibly gentle, brushed away the silt of ages and lifted me from my grave. I rose. Through the churning water, I saw the world of light approaching, a world I no longer knew. The pressure lessened around me, and I felt a stirring deep within my glass. The frozen memory, the captain's final gaze, began to thaw. My long sleep was over. My curse was awake. The air I tasted was different. The hands that held me were soft, covered in strange, thin skin. I was placed not on a wooden desk, but on a cold, white table under lights that did not flicker. This new world was one of quiet efficiency, of plastic and steel. They cleaned me with delicate brushes, their voices hushed with academic reverence. They marveled at my engravings, at the maker's mark, at the dent from the mast. They called me a relic, a priceless artifact from a bygone era. They saw a story of history, of exploration, of a lost ship. They did not see the ghost in the glass, but it was there, waiting, for a new eye to look through me, for a new ambition to tempt. I now live in a world of climate control and velvet ropes, my silence mistaken for peace. Millions of eyes stare at me through the safety of my glass prison. They see an artifact, a survivor of a forgotten age. They see the intricate serpent, the dent from a long-forgotten struggle, the faint crack in my lens. They see history. They do not see the truth. They cannot see the ghost of the captain still reflected in my depths, forever falling into the sea. They cannot feel the heat of the fire, the cold of the abyss, the weight of the gold that bought nothing but death. They call me a treasure, but I am not. I am a receipt. I am the price that was paid for ambition. So when you look upon the relics of the past, displayed so neatly for your curiosity, remember this. They are looking back. Every scratch, every stain, every crack is a memory, and some memories are curses. I am the eye of the abyss, and I have seen enough to know that the most dangerous horizons are not the ones we seek, but the ones we build within ourselves. Distance reveals, but not always the horizon. Ambition builds, but not always an empire. Objects remember when people forget, and one by one, their silence will be broken. This was a silent witness story,